This podcast is a collaboration between Costard and Touchstone Productions and the Dads from the Crypt podcast.
Jose.
Hi, it's Alan, and welcome to a bonus episode of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. A couple weeks back, Gil and I were honored to be celebrated at this year's Chattanooga Film Festival. While it really was a hell of a lot of fun, it wasn't the best part of the weekend, not for Gil and I. The best part of the weekend was getting to meet a lot of talented young filmmakers and see their work. One of those talented filmmakers is a guy named Francisco Lacerda, a Portuguese-American filmmaker from the Azores. He made a fantastic short called, they call it Red Cemetery. It's a beautifully shot parody of Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns. Now, the cool thing about Red Cemetery is you can feel Francisco's genuine passion for the thing that he's parodying. Actually, what you can feel is Francisco's deep passion for movie making itself. Hey, Gil and I can relate.
Red Cemetery.
So I was saying we saw it at the Chattanooga Film Festival like 2 weeks ago.
Gil at
with a bunch of shorts, but you know yours really stood out. I mean, I just couldn't stop laughing, and it just was so Tales from the Crypt. Had we had the show on now, or you'd been around when we did the show all those years ago, we would have been on the phone to you saying, "Hey, you got to come in and do one."
That's true. Yeah.
My God.
And that's Francisco Lacerda.
That's how much we liked it. I mean, we don't like a lot of stuff, and we don't talk to a lot of people, but we both looked at each other and said, "Who is this guy? We got to talk to him."
Your promo for I think karaoke night is fucking hilarious.
Oh,
It's hilarious, and that if never mind Red Cemetery, if I had seen that, I would hire you.
wow. I'm completely flattered. Like hearing this from the guys who made the Tales from the Crypt. I'm a really big fan myself. Made my day. Very pleased. I'm so glad you guys really enjoyed it. So I was actually born in the States. I was born in Fall River. My parents are Portuguese from the Azores, and I lived there till I was 5 years old, and then we moved back to the Azores.
The Azores is an archipelago composed of 9 volcanic islands in the Micronesia region of the North Atlantic Ocean, about 1,400 kilometers, 870 miles west of Lisbon, Portugal. Though it's Portuguese, the Azores are autonomous and quite beautiful.
I lived there most of my life, and then after I went to film school, I moved to Helsinki with my wife, and now I've been living here in Helsinki and going, between Helsinki and the Azores doing my stuff.
You're in Helsinki now?
Yeah, right now I'm in Helsinki.
Wow. What time is it there?
8 o'clock, 8 p.m.
Cool.
Where did you go to film school?
I was in Portugal. It was an arts college called how was it? It has a Portuguese name, but it was like basically the Superior School of Arts and Design of Caldas de Rainha in like West Portugal. Mm-hmm. And I took basically the filmmaking course, which was sound and image. And
you seem to have been a terrific student. You've applied everything so well.
Yeah. I guess.
You describe yourself as Azore exploitation. What do you mean by that?
So Azore exploitation, it kind of started as a joke, actually, because I was doing stuff in the Azores and in Portugal, let's call it, generally, that I guess nobody was doing at the time. So they were basically exploitation type of films, or films inspired by exploitation films, and just genre pictures in general.
Francisco, what in your mind, when you think of an exploitation film, what are one or two that just pop right into your mind? You go, yeah, that's what I'm going for.
I'd say Cannibal Holocaust is a great example of an exploitation film.
Okay. Okay. All right. We have nothing against cannibalism.
Films. But I think most Italian genre pictures of the 70s and the 80s can be categorized as exploitation films. Even the spaghetti westerns. I mean, spaghetti westerns are exploitation films in the end. So I was basically doing, like, I wouldn't call them exploitation, but I liked the sound of Azor exploitation. Like, there's also the Canucks exploitation, or
sure.
the
Sure.
Ozploitation
Sure.
kind of thing. And my cinema drank a lot from those types of film, and I just said, hey, let's make every time I would like have an idea for a next film, hey, let's make another Azor exploitation film. And it just caught up, like on the Motel X Film Festival. I was talking to this one guy that works at the fest, and he was asking, so you're back with another Azor exploitation? And I was like, that was the first time I heard the term from somebody else's mouth and not my own. I was like, yeah, that's right, another Azor exploitation. And from then on, now I label them mostly as Azor exploitation. I define them basically as genre short films or feature films that are made in the Azores by Azorian artists.
And if they feature a little bit of blood spatter, it makes them even better.
Oh yeah, totally. Most of them always feature some kind of violence or weird genre things going on there.
What does Azor exploitation owe to Portuguese exploitation movies?
Yeah, Portuguese exploitation films. So in Portugal, it's horror films in general are scarce. Yeah, it's hardly any. I mean, whatever you consider to be Portuguese horror, it's not really horror per se, but it does touch up on themes that are considered horrible or horrifying.
Why is that? Do you suppose? I mean, is that a cultural thing?
It's I think it's a stigma by the guys that run the Portuguese Film Institute, and the prestige aspect of Portuguese cinema. It's mostly the films, while they hover around the genre film is very it's very stigmatized in Portugal, so you don't really see many feature films that are self-assumed as horror films coming out from Portugal, although that's been changing in the recent years. Like there's one feature film called Mutant Blast that's Portuguese, directed by my friend Fernando Ale. It was a Troma co-production, and most recently there's actually a self-assumed Portuguese horror film coming out soon. Fernando was there at the time, and he asked the director, so is this really a horror film, or is just something that's hovering around the world? And he said, yes, it is a self-assumed horror film, which is great to hear, because in Portugal you don't really hear that coming from many.
When you say self-assumed, I'm not quite sure what that means.
The director assumes that the film is an actual horror picture and not something that's no, don't call it a horror picture, call it a drama kind of thing.
I see. So they're owning the horror.
Yes, they're owning it.
Okay, all right.
Whatever how that might be seen in the eyes of the purists of Portuguese cinema.
All right, so it's not just something that's being thrown at them or spattered, that they're being spattered with. It's they're actually, they're stepping up and going, that's what I am.
Well, at least with this one film coming up soon, yeah. But I don't know about what's coming next.
Sure.
Honestly.
Well, hey, if it succeeds, it'll go one
way.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully it succeeds. Absolutely. And it opens the eyes of the people with the money.
That is usually how it works. It's that simple. let's shift gears a little bit. What is life like in the Azores?
Um, so they're islands. They're like 9 islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I lived in the island of San Miguel. It's the largest island of the archipelago.
You live in Ponta Delgada?
Yes, Ponta Delgada, indeed. And it's a small place, very contained. Everybody knows each other,
Uh,
kind of
but
deal.
but physically it's beautiful. It's very it's
Yes.
lush and green because of it's the weather is actually quite mild, though you're kind of perched well off of Portugal, not in the middle of the Atlantic, but
Yeah, I don't
you're
know how many miles west of Portugal, but
it's not a
it's
few.
near the tectonic fissure.
Yes, right. You are, and the Azores are where three plates meet. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
How cool. How cool.
It is.
I've been to Iceland, and Iceland is fascinating. First of all, because it's there's the combination of the fire because of the tectonic nature, but also because it's so far north, it's cold. And the fire and the ice make for fascinating images. But there's a place in Iceland where you can literally stand between two tectonic plates.
That's amazing.
It's quite cool.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know that there's a place like that in the Azores, but there have been earthquakes there that were catastrophic.
Oh yeah, years ago. I don't think I've ever experienced anything that was catastrophic when I was living there. I do remember experiencing some that, when I was at school, I remember there was this wave of earthquakes, and there was one particular earthquake that was scary. It was kind of scary. I remember seeing the pillars of the structure just wobbling around. And they shut down the school there.
We too are an earthquake country. We're in California, and so we can so relate to living in a place where this shit can happen at any particular moment. You just accept that as part of the pleasure of living in this particular place.
Exactly. But
you might actually find that if you did some research that the reason you're so into horror movies is because as a young kid you got shook so much and so bad being an earthquake that it's changed your whole sensibility.
If we're gonna get into why am I so fascinated by horror or anything, I think it actually started in America when I was still living there. With the fact that the house that I was living, there was the story around that it was haunted. So this has kind of been with me my whole life in some kind of fashion, and I just developed this fascination with the films in general. Was after I was watching Jurassic Park on VHS.
Would you consider that the first horror film you ever saw, or what is the first horror film you ever saw? The one that just it got you?
The one that got me, the one that scared the living bejesus out of me, is right here.
Alien.
I was 8 years old, and Alien was coming up on TV, and my dad said, "Hey, we gotta watch this film tonight." And I'm like, okay. About to the part where they start descending to the planet and they get in the derelict ship, I just kind of hid behind the couch, and my dad just switched channels. So later on, that whole sequence stayed with me. It got burned in my mind. I was like, I gotta watch that film. So DVD came up, and I remember seeing on one of the DVD stores we had in Azores, Alien DVD, and my mom said, if you succeed in your grades, I'll get you that DVD. So I studied hard, got good grades, and she got me that DVD. And we all sat down to watch, and I was completely, my world changed. It had already changed with Jurassic Park once. And but with Alien, it was, I was terrified of that film, to the point I couldn't look at its cover. for months. I had to hide that DVD. I was so scared of that film. I had trouble eating too because of that film. This lasted for maybe 3 months, and then I just decided to face my fears because I was scared, but I was utterly fascinated by this film, by the power that it had on me, how it made me feel that way, you know, so repulsed by it. And that really attracted me, and I went in again. I actually hid the fucking DVD in the attic. And that's my daddy. We gotta go to the attic. I gotta go get something from up there. So I got the DVD. I watched the whole film again from end to. It's still a scary film. It was still a scary film to me.
However, the second time.
However, I really appreciated it, and it's still for me one of the greatest films ever made.
What really stood out the second time that you missed the first time?
The film was burned into my mind, so nothing really stood out. But what stood out, not in terms of scenes, but just the craft of it and how they worked so well with that creature. They didn't show much of it. They kept it hidden till the very end, and that just the way they did it, like, it leaves so much to the imagination that it's just masterfully crafted horror thriller, and that the craft of it really, really fascinated me, and I thought to myself, I really want to make something like this one day. Like, it was very inspiring.
This is how it begins for all of us. It gets underneath our skin, and the next thing you're obsessed, and until you
completely obsessed, I still am to this day.
Yeah. Even doing it, it doesn't feed the need.
Definitely. But I guess after Alien, at that time I knew I want to make films, but I was more interested in the special effects. I wanted to be a special effects artist, and I started building stuff at home with whatever I could get, because I'm on an island. Insularity was insane. It was very difficult to get hold of materials like latex.
That is the next question. That is the next question. Okay, filmmaking in the Azores. All right. You had a camera, but okay, let's.
Oh yeah, and I had a camera. I had a camera that was actually from my dad's company. He was working at how do you say it? It was like a power plant. He was a mechanical engineer, and he had this camera to shoot the motors and all that stuff, but was a part of the company, so that he would bring it at home sometimes. And this camera was an Olympus camera, like one of those really first digital cameras with a fixed lens that when you turned on, the lens would go out, and it actually had the option to record video, but only 30-second clips and without sound. So the first things I did...
Without sound, MOS. Wow.
Yes, exactly. The first things I did were always shot in 30 seconds or less than that. So I would actually edit in camera, like, okay, first shot, we're going to shoot it, cut, but without any sound. So I was making silent films in the end with my sister, and there was horror already there.
Yeah, but you had no access to video editing, anything. So you really had to kind of rope it in your head, like Hitchcock's rope. It's gonna have to flow from here to here to here to here, because there ain't no cuts.
Yeah, exactly. You could stop the recording, but it would only allow you to shoot 30 seconds. You could stop it at 20 or 10 or something like that, but more than 30 seconds, I couldn't do a consecutive take of it. First, I started shooting tests with the special effects thing. I remember doing like this alien chest burster effect from watching. I watched so many making offs.
Well, of course.
And stuff like that. I was completely enthralled. I was like 13 or 14 at the time.
That effect from Alien was epic. It was it was kind of a game changer. It is in everyone's head. It was the monster, and it had personality as it popped out of the chest. It was horrifying.
Oh yeah, totally.
Horrifying. and yet cute.
The thing about it, Alien, is that it's so visceral in its biological elements,
Yeah.
like the alien life cycle, the eggs. It's so damn alien and believable. Like, yeah, you go to the far reaches of space and you come across something like that. I mean, you would probably come across something as alien as that creature. You know, it's so, and the way they portrayed it in the film, it's so damn organic. So, you know, you can almost feel it and you can almost smell it from how it looks.
You know, there are a lot of movies where human beings are food, but in this one, we're just a womb.
Exactly, and that's terrifying. We're just a cattle for them to breed. And I also like the idea. I mean, with the sequels, they kind of try to explain more about it, but I really like the mystery of what was it? Was it a weapon? Where did it come from? All that mystery, that hidden lore about it was fascinating and just made the whole thing even more terrifying. But just going back a bit into my early filmmaking things, Alien made me want to be a special effect and made me want to scare people with a film. But actually, it was the Evil Dead that showed me that I can make a film.
But what about Evil Dead made you see your own path? That it wasn't just you loved and you aspired to it, but suddenly you saw the dots connecting.
I guess the Evil Dead is such an independent film. It was basically made with friends mostly. It was Sam Raimi just gathering a bunch of people and you know, knowing about that and reading more about how it was made. It just really inspired me. It's like I can be this guy totally. I can just get a bunch of friends and make a film. So it kind of opened up the possibilities that it's not that impossible to make a film, and that just made me like go forward with it.
That's really the nature of what we want to talk to you about, because you have found ways to have a film career really on a shoestring. You're doing it in that both fascinates us, and you know, we really respect the way that you're doing it, because this is, I think, more the future than not.
I guess so. I mean, as the years go by, one starts to realize that it just gets harder and harder. Like, for example, Red Cemetery. It was an idea that came up during the pandemic, and I had done crowdfundings before, like for Karaoke Night was my last crowdfunded projects that was luckily successful, but it was such a daunting experience that I'm never gonna repeat it. And with Red Cemetery, I basically had to produce it myself, and I had to go to mostly Azorian grants, you know, and get a whatever I could from them to make the project happen. And Red Cemetery actually showed me that I am not a producer, and I don't think I want to be a producer. I am a director and writer, maybe. I mean, the flame is still there, but we want more and we want to improve, and for that we need to go to greater heights and do more stuff than just gather around a bunch of friends and make things happen. Like my first films, like there's Fangs and Claws and Fangs and Claws 2 and Freelancer, they were all done like, hey, let's gather up a bunch of friends and make whatever we can with the money we have in the bottom of our pockets. And those films basically were what jump started my film career into the film festivals and allowed me to make more films for on, and most recently Red Cemetery.
Are you making films now full time, or do you have a job, or how do you support yourself?
Right now, I know at the moment I used to have a day job, but I got laid off. So now I'm just fully into trying to make something new after Red Cemetery. So I don't really have a job right now. I'm just living off welfare, and it's tough. And savings basically. So yeah, it's difficult. I don't think I've ever made a penny, save for Karaoke Night. I've made a penny because I don't know if this is should be out. I think has already been announced, but no, it hasn't. So something's coming up in October regarding karaoke night that I can't really talk about yet. But there's news out there, but they don't know that it's about karaoke night. But yeah, I did make a penny out of that one, and but yeah, short films. I mean, it's a tough market to sell them because they're short films.
Yeah. Oh,
They
yeah.
can
Yeah.
work as a proof of concept or something, but mostly, raise money, make them, get them out there, and pray for good luck.
Well, in the case of Red Cemetery, and it's a calling card.
I guess it is. And I'm really happy. I actually had a meeting with somebody. I mean, this is also a bit off the record kind of thing here, but yeah, I had a meeting yesterday with some people that regarding Red Cemetery that really made me happy, and I really wish I could talk about it, but it hasn't yet been signed, but it's gonna happen.
No,
And
no
you'll
worries.
hear about it definitely.
Good. It should happen. I mean, you've worked really hard. Your stuff is exceptional, and why not? What about bigger projects? I mean, full length projects.
I've been at that for like maybe 6-7 years now. I would say 7 years. Yeah, I wrote me and a Marino, Franca, who's the director of photography of Red Cemetery, and he's also been with me throughout all these projects
Mm.
for in either a producer capacity or a director of photography capacity, and or writer too. And in this case, we wrote together this feature film script for the Fangs and Claws project, based on Fangs and Claws, but as a standalone film, because they're short films. Nobody is going to know the lore from those short films, so we decided to make something standalone with the title. So yeah, this we've been trying to get it off the ground for like 6 years now, and the Portuguese Film Institute just looks at that and says no fucking way, because it's just not what, you don't get a grasp of what it is. It's an exploitation film. It's rather epic for the micro budget we were asking for, but I like to work with micro budgets because it's really pushes you to be more find creative solutions to portray certain things on screen.
You know what your work reminds me of? Early Sam Raimi.
Oh wow, thank you.
and but also early John Waters.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, that's a great compliment. Love
there's it's funny. It's going to sound like I'm jumping ship a little bit. I remember a review that I think it was in the New Yorker of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and they refer to it as cheerfully loused up, and something about that description of things being cheerfully loused up, done with absolute. That was the point. There's a joy in the way, yes, in the way that it was made, and the fact that it's not precision filmmaking. It's there's absolute joy in it. There's a difference between people who love a movie and when you love something in this context, what you love about it. Whereas people who adore a thing, they just love everything about it.
Yeah.
And it almost misses the point. Whereas your love for the spaghetti westerns is right there in your shot selection and just the willingness to go balls to the wall all the way.
Yes,
it's the fucking point.
Yes, it is. Otherwise, why would I make it? Why would I even try to attempt it?
And that, Francisco, is why we would have had you on Tales from the Crypt in a
my
heartbeat.
goodness.
And but it's also why, hey, Gil and I are working on a new project called Are You Afraid? And you are definitely someone who would get our show. We wouldn't have to explain it to you. You'd walk right in the door and go, I know how to do this in my fucking sleep.
If people want to see what we've been talking about in terms of your shorts,
Go there first.
is there an address or a website or something that we can promote in our pod where they can see these pictures? Because we've spoken so highly about them.
Okay, so like Karaoke Night now has found a new life, which more news about that will come soon. Red Cemetery is still doing its festivals, but I do still have Fangs and Claws 1 and 2. They're up on Troma's YouTube channel because I managed to get them to distribute them. And Freelancer, I mean, it's still up on Vimeo. Yeah. And there's also a short called The Last Galaxy, which is like a Fox trailer for an Azorian space opera ripoff film. Yeah, I guess that's about it. That's what can be found online. I mean, Karaoke Night used to be online, but not anymore because of things that will come up soon. And Red Cemetery is still doing the fest, but yeah, those three films can be definitely found online. And I've gotten a lot of praise for Freelancer, although it's not a technically perfect film because budget reasons. Basically, I had to work with what I had. Yeah, I think I can also send you guys a bunch of links. But basically, Troma's YouTube channel has my two first short films, and on Vimeo, I think it's the Cactus,
but not the one that we saw. Not the.
Yeah, that one is still doing the fests. Yeah, they call it Red Cemetery is still doing the fests, and later on this year it will become available through a distributor.
Okay, you let us know that, because I think our audience would love to see what got us so excited about.
Oh yeah, totally.
So we'd like to include that as part of what we're telling them in our podcast.
Oh yeah, totally. It's I can't really announce these yet. It has a couple more screenings coming up, mostly in Europe. I don't know when it's gonna screen up the next time in the States though. But as soon as I know, I'm gonna be posting it on Instagram. So yeah, that's about it.
And where can people find you on Instagram?
At Francis 2_ Lacerda.
Any more questions?
No, this was great. This was great.
Any more answers?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's about it.
More answers to come. Let's put it there. And as we thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us, Francisco. We will be talking.
Nice. Okay, I'll be waiting.
That was a threat, by the way. I thought you'd appreciate that. Anyway, and thank you everyone for tuning in. The How Not to Make a Movie podcast is executive produced by me, Alan Katz, by Gil Adler, and by Jason Stein. Our artwork was done by the amazing Jody Webster, and Jason Jody, along with Mando, are all the hosts of the fun and informative Dads from the Crypt podcast, followed up for what my old pal the Crypt Keeper would have called terrific crypt content.